Hello and welcome. My name is Zafar Iqbal, and you are watching the Mojo Story. We're continuing with our coverage of the SCO Summit, SCO meeting that's taking place in Goa. Currently, the foreign ministers are meeting, foreign ministers of all the member countries. Indian Foreign Minister Jaishankar has spoken. There have been a series of bilateral meetings also between the foreign ministers. Uh, uh, Jaishankar has had a bilateral meeting with the Russian counterpart as well as the Chinese counterpart. Pakistani Foreign Minister Bilawal Bhutto is also in Goa taking part in the SCO meeting. There has not been any bilateral meeting between the Pakistani and the Indian foreign ministers. However, Bilawal Bhutto did take part in the dinner that was hosted from the Indian side last night. He shook hands with Foreign Minister Jaishankar and exchanged greetings. And today also, he was welcomed by the Indian Foreign Minister, and he did a Namaste. And there's been also a focus on the optics of the meeting. To discuss this, we're joined by an eminent panel. We're joined by Ambassador Mohan Kumar. Nandan Krishnan joins us from ORF. We're also joined by Ambassador Dr. Mohan Kumar, is a former diplomat, and we're joined by KJ Singh, Army veteran. He joins us, and we're joined by SL Narasimhan, Lieutenant General SL Narasimhan, former member NSAB. Welcome to the show. Thanks for joining us, all of you. If I may start with you, Ambassador Mohan Kumar, Foreign Minister Jaishankar has already spoken, and he has referred to cross-border terrorism, and he says it's in the mandate of the SCO. What's the sense that you make of his speech?
Well, I think what he said was par for the course. That is India's position, and you have to articulate it. I think the problem I see with the Shanghai Cooperation Organization is, as I was preparing for this panel, I was looking at the charter, and you've got three important things in the charter, and it seems to me at least three main members are violating it. One is terrorism, and we know Pakistan's track record, at least. I don't know if there has been a change of heart or not, but there is definitely a track record there that could be construed as violative of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization Charter. The second is the UN Charter and its principles. And frankly, it's clear to me that Russia is violative of that part of the SCO Charter when we talk of invading Ukraine and so on, whatever you want to call it. And everybody has said that the UN Charter needs to be preserved. And the third is actually the SCO Charter talks of promotion of human rights in collaboration with international instruments and national legislation. And China is a member of the China signed the International Covenant on Political and Civil Rights in 1996. And you can easily argue that China is violative of that international covenant. So we are looking at an organization which actually espouses lofty principles, but which are not actually kept by some of its main members. So that, it seems to me, is the main problem. The External Affairs Minister's speech is what you would expect him to do. And I think has in mind an audience as well, right? His pitch to the members of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization this is a fundamental tenet of the SCO, and we are not able to meet that. And so I think he's absolutely right in underlining that. But I think I will wait for either the chair's statement, which happened in Samarkand in 2022, or a joint statement which happened in 2021. So we have that something that diplomats like me will wait for. Can we have a joint statement? If not, you will have to have a chair's statement even after the foreign minister. So I'll wait for that, and then we will be able to read between the lines. Thank you.
Well, that's very important. We'll have to wait for that. But Foreign Minister Jaishankar set the ball rolling. If we can play that soundbite, what exactly he said there.
Excellencies, while the world was engaged in facing COVID and its consequences, the menace of terrorism continues unabated. Taking our eyes off this menace would be detrimental to our security interests. We firmly believe that there can be no justification for terrorism and it must be stopped in all its forms and manifestations, including cross-border terrorism. The channel of finances for terrorist activities must be seized and blocked without distinction. Members need not be reminded that combating terrorism is one of the original mandates of the SCO.
Lieutenant General S.L. Narasimhan, combating terrorism is the mandate of the SCO, really emphasizing what India has been saying all along, that terrorism is an important thing that has been hurting India for so long and it needs to be emphasized.
That is very true. If you look at the original mandate of SCO and also prior to that, the Shanghai Five, that came into existence based on the security of the boundary, etc. That is the start point of the Shanghai Five. When it came to SCO and China started actually the exercises with other military exercises with other countries, it started with Kyrgyzstan in 2002 on the format of counter-terrorism. Even all the other exercises that they do with Russia, the peace mission series of exercises and everything else, is on the basis of counter-terrorism. But if you look at the forces that they deploy, they are more conventional in nature than counter-terrorism. So right. I think in the garb of counter-terrorism, even the other interoperable nature of these exercises needs to be noticed. On the EAM's remarks on terrorism, we have always steadfastly said this, that terrorism in all its forms has to be condemned and it should not be supported, and all the resources that fuel this terrorism needs to be cut off. That is the standard thing that we have had for a very long time, and I think that is a reiteration that you saw in the clip that you just played. And we also promoted the CCIT, which is still, in some form going around, but we find lack of support from China and others to CCIT, which we have promoted. So the issue is terrorism is going to be one of the major factors and one of the major tenets of the SCO, and I think that is going to get the correct kind of emphasis even in this foreign ministers meet.
Right. Nandan Krishnan, what is an important point that there are member countries like India, China, Pakistan, there are major differences. But do you think there are commonalities more than differences that could help SCO to gain success, or it's the differences that will outweigh the commonalities? As we've been pointing out, there are so many contradictions.
Like with any organization, the bilateral relationships will impact the overall efficiency of the multilateral body. There's no question about that. But SCO in its original format, and if you, as Ambassador Mohan and General Narasimhan pointed out, do contain some common perspectives on the entire region. The region has to be stable. We want the region to be stable, and all of us share it. Maybe to a certain point, as Ambassador Mohan pointed out, Pakistan is particularly violative of that particular principle. But otherwise, all the big powers in the SCO, and I am counting Russia, China, and India, are clear that we need to have stability in this region, and therefore efforts at cooperation are more important. But I agree with you. I mean, as with any international body, there are countries that have capabilities of creating nuisance or disruption. But there is a lot in common, and we should work towards that, I suspect.
Lieutenant Colonel KG Singh, what's your sense that you make out of this? What are the expectations that one could draw from this meeting? It's an important meeting. Foreign ministers of all these countries have come to India and they're talking. They will be interacting with each other. What can one expect at the end of it?
You see, the major expectation which I have is that I hope the foreign minister of Pakistan and India, they have a bilateral meeting. You cannot keep on saying till at such time you stop terrorism, right? There will be no meeting. Nobody admits that they're doing terrorism, right? Everybody knows who is doing it, but nobody's admitting it. By not talking, what do we achieve? Ultimately, it will have to be bilateral meeting, right? We had with China. Why can't we have with Pakistan? it can go on and on and on forever. That no, we will not talk to them till such time terrorism stops. And terrorism, sometimes I wonder if it's really in the hands, all the terrorism, actually in the hands of the Pakistan military or the Pakistan government. Some of these are rogue elements, and they will keep on doing it, even if the
But
army
but
stops.
but the point but the point is that they come from that country into India, and for India to say that it's very difficult for India to distinguish that whether they are backed by the state or they are rogue elements. But it's very clear that they come from that country, and that's why India has been making this point that terror and talks cannot go together.
Yes, we all know that it comes from that country. There is no doubt about it. But then this will carry on, so therefore we will never ever talk to Pakistan. Right?
Right.
This terrorism is not going to stop, even if the Pakistan army and the government wills it. Right? Once you release the Jenny, now it's out of their hands. There are Afghanistani terrorists which are completely independent of Pakistan.
Okay.
So this we ultimately have to talk. The
Right.
only way out is we must talk.
Right. We're also joined by Padma from Goa. Padma, can you bring us up to speed about what's happening there? We heard Foreign Minister Jaishankar. Now it will be the turn of Bilawal after some time. What exactly Foreign Minister did point towards cross-border terrorism? How do you see the things developing there? Can you bring us up to speed about all those developments?
Sure. But yesterday when we had the census within the official, they told us that there is no territory report, but it's not in focus.
Right.
So
I'm afraid we have some problem with the line there. There's some problem with the audio. We'll try and set the link right and get back to you, Padma. Ambassador Mohan Kumar, is there a possibility of a bilateral meeting between the foreign ministers of India and Pakistan? As Lieutenant Colonel KJ Singh was saying, that we cannot go about sulking. We have to talk to each other. And do you think that ice breaking in this SCO meeting, if not overtly they are meeting, but behind the doors, some sort of an engagement happening?
No, I don't, because I genuinely think the public mood in both countries. I mean, you have to also look at what's happening in Pakistan and how they are reacting to Bilawal Bhutto coming here rather than just doing the meeting online. So I don't see it happening now. I think I prefer to be an optimist in the sense that back channel talks have continued, and that's good to know. I think the two important points that you need to note in this relationship at present is that the ceasefire is holding by and large. And secondly, back channel talks, it's my understanding that they haven't stopped. I mean, they've continued. And I think the recent book by Ambassador Sati Lamba is ample illustration. So if these two things continue, the timing of the official bilateral dialogue is something that the two governments have to decide. Both governments appear to be in election mode. And certainly we have a problem in the sense that we do not have a valid interlocutor in Pakistan, because they are also in a minority government or a government which has not been elected. Elections are expected to happen. Once I think there is clarity in Pakistan that this is an elected government, then I think you can expect an official dialogue. The best that we can expect from this SCO meet is if there is broad agreement between India, Pakistan, and the others in the joint statement or the chair statement on connectivity and trade. The trouble is, even in connectivity, there is competition between China's Belt Road Initiative and India's Chabahar. So I think this is an organization, in my honest view, Zafar, it is struggling to find its raison d'etre, as I said. Everything that it is doing is really counter to the original spirit and the SCO charter. So the one thing that we can emphasize is perhaps the Central Asian republics are the core of this organization. And the objective is to connect Central Asia with South Asia. Can we do both? A Belt Road initiative that goes at its speed and a Chabahar which goes at its speed, and we accept that there are overlapping connectivity mechanisms which can work in harmony. That is really the best possible outcome at this stage.
Road initiative that China, CPEC as they call it, going through Pakistan and POK. But I'm reminded what happened a couple of years ago when there were hostilities between India and Pakistan. Pakistan Commerce Minister did actually moot that there could be trade openings between India and Pakistan, but it was turned down because of public pressure. As you pointed out, there's public pressure within Pakistan, and Imran Khan turned it down. Then what is the way forward, Nandanuni Krishnan?
Say that.
Yeah, it's okay. Well, we can hear you now.
Sorry. Partly, I would say that the problem is not that the two projects have not been accepted by SCO. The project is precisely the different speeds at which they are moving. Our project, which is actually an international project, which has more than 14 countries signed on, that is the International North-South Corridor. Our project, unfortunately, has stumbled into several problems which are linked to international affairs, Iran being under sanctions, a lot of other issues. And of course, the fact that most of these countries, which are Central Asian, India and, Azerbaijan and others, we need to kind of generate the funds required to upgrade this link. And now, of course, with Russia under sanctions and more severe sanctions, everything gets a little bit more complicated. That is point number one. Point number two is we have to be very careful on this road because, for example, Uzbekistan has no problem trying to build a link via Peshawar to Gwadar. They are, in fact, discussing it right now with the Pakistanis. So, as I was pointing out that, I think it's the speed that matters. If we are able to bring the necessary resources to connect via, let's say, Turkmenistan into the former Soviet network of railways, then probably the Central Asian countries will use that link into the Indian Ocean to evacuate whatever natural resources they have. But speed is of essence, and therefore that requires political focus, political will.
Yes, and when you talk of speed, there are reports that CPEC has also slowed down in Pakistan. It's not going on with the pace that it was a few years ago, and now they're trying to perhaps revive it. Pakistani army chief went to China, and then there were some sort of announcements in that regard. But Padma, coming back to you, you joined us. What's going on around you? We're trying to ask you that please bring us up to speed. What are the developments? The Foreign Minister Jaishankar has already spoken.
Yes, there have been no such developments right now after he spoke because they've gone into a closed door meeting. But as I was saying earlier when we got cut off, yesterday there was, we were talking to sources within the officialdom and they were telling us that terrorism is not likely to be, it's going to be, tackled with a broad brush and it's not going to be, there are going to be no specifics. So, but it came as, hardly a surprise to hear EAM Mr. Jaishankar today very specifically refer to cross-border terrorism. And in the Indian context, we all know what that means. He also went a step further and he made the message, he sent the message loud and clear to the members of the SCO. So we also know whom he is referring to. So there was certainly a very clear and direct reference to cross-border terrorism from Pakistan. And as you said earlier, Zafar, I entirely agree with you. I have been covering this summit, as you know, from Goa for Mojo Story for the past 2 days. And I've been talking to the Pakistani media as well. And they say that, there's great hope and optimism amongst Pakistani circles, and they see this as a small step, Bilawal's, but a sure step towards normalization of relations. On the other hand, I'm also hearing today that there is very much the K word, the Kashmir word is still very much on the agenda for the Pakistani side, including and especially the foreign minister and the foreign office of Pakistan. So there is no question, that of talks happening, or sort of. I don't see great hope arising, even if the two foreign ministers may have sort of bumped into each other in a corridor in the Taj yesterday, or will do so today. I don't see talks
But
as such
but
progressing
but I
on the
wanted to ask.
bilateral level.
I
Yeah,
wanted to
go
specifically
ahead.
ask you about the optics that we were yesterday checking out whether there will be a handshake. There was a handshake exchange of greetings today. There was this
Yeah.
namaste by Foreign Minister Bilawal. Can you tell us something about that?
Yeah, well, all we are hearing is that there was a handshake, but then that's nothing unusual. India has the chair of the SCO, and the dinner last night was hosted by India, specifically by Economic Relations Secretary. So therefore, it's not surprising. I mean, there are 8 delegates there, so it's not as if he's going to not shake the hand of only one delegate. So I don't think we should read too much into this. Bhappi, Jhappi, and a handshake or hug or kiss or whatever it was. I think that there was a cordial welcome awarded to all the ministers here, and one of them happened to be Bilawal Bhutto. At least that is the signal that India sent out. And also the Namaste this morning came as a surprise. I would say a pleasant surprise to Indian viewers that Bilawal did not stride onto the stage with his arm extended, or with both his arms extended for a hug, but decided to take the safe route. And Dr. Jaishankar was already ready with a namaste on stage. So yes, these are optics, and I wouldn't read too much into them. But when things are that tense between two countries, certainly every little signal plays a role. And in that sense, I feel that the forward step is currently seems to be coming from Pakistan, and India is being guarded, not defensive at all, but guarded. But as I said, Kashmir is very much on the agenda from what I hear, and also cross-border terrorism is, certainly a subject for us, as all of you heard this morning. Safar?
Padmarao, before we let you go, one last question. When Bilawal left Pakistan, he made a short video statement. He said that he will have bilateral meetings with the other countries. He kept a sort of a window open, but it seemed that there will be no bilateral. That's what it seems like.
Yes, India has neither committed, but on the other hand, also not ruled out a bilateral altogether. If you take a very close look and read between the lines of all the statements made so far by the External Affairs Minister and by other officials, they have repeatedly pointed out that it is near impossible to talk to somebody who sends terrorists, who arms, trains, and sends terrorists across the border. That has been made clear a multiple number of times. On the other hand, nobody has clearly said that no, there is going to be absolutely no bilateral meeting. Now, what I can say is that yesterday I did ask some of these highly placed sources as to what then in that case is discussed at all in bilateral meetings. Do two countries restrict their matters to SCO matters that they may have between each other as SCO members, or do they then discuss real bilateral matters? Again, you
Right.
saw they do discuss real bilateral matters which do not concern the SCO necessarily. In the case of Russia, in the case of China, I expect there may not be an actual formal announcement of a bilateral meeting. There hasn't been one so far, but there may well be, or there may already have been some form of a contact or a chat. And I can certainly say that Pakistan must have been told in no uncertain terms that cross-border terrorism has to stop. Zafar.
Thanks so much, Padma Rao. Thanks so much for joining us. We'll keep getting updates from you through the day. But if we can also play that small chat that you did with the Pakistani journalist to bring a view from Pakistan. There is a contingent of journalists who accompanied Bilawal Bhutto Zardari, who are in India and covering this event.
I'm here at the media center at the Shanghai Cooperation Organization's one-day conference, and I'm speaking to Rehan Ahmed, who is an editor from Pakistan's Hum News. Rehan, welcome to Mojo Story. आपसे मैं सिर्फ 3 सवाल करना चाहती हूँ. एक तो ये है कि कल शाम को हम जो डिनर हुई थी इंडिया ने होस्ट किया था, उसमें आपके फॉरेन मिनिस्टर बिलावल भुट्टो भी शामिल थे। आप क्या सुन रहे हैं, क्या फीडबैक मिला है आपको उस डिनर के बारे में और उस मुलाकात के बारे में?
उस मुलाकात के बारे में, क्योंकि अभी तक कोई वैसे भूचाल नहीं मचा है, तो इसका मतलब है कि फीडबैक बहुत अच्छा है, नॉर्मल है। हर चीज़ अगर नॉर्मल चलती रहे तो वो ज़्यादा बेहतर होती है, बजाय इसके कि हम हमेशा कोशिश करते हैं कि लंबी छलांग के बाद हम लोग या तो गड्ढे में गिर जाते हैं या फिर एक कदम आगे बढ़ के 2 कदम पीछे आ जाते हैं। हमें चाहिए छोटे छोटे स्टेप्स लेके बड़े बड़े उसका इम्पैक्ट पड़ता रहे, और ये मेरे ख्याल से एक दुरुस्त समत में डायरेक्शन में एक अच्छा छोटा कदम है, जो इंशाल्लाह उसके बड़े नताइज, मजबूत नताइज निकलने चाहिए। होपफुली
ये कौन सा छोटा कदम है, क्या सुन रहे हैं?
ये छोटा कदम कि बिलावल भुट्टो इधर आए, ना उन्होंने वीडियो लिंक का सहारा लिया, वो खुद फिजिकली इधर आए। उन्होंने कल वीडियो बयान में भी कहा कि मैं वो तमाम SCO के जो ममालिक हैं उनको अहमियत देते हैं, इस तंजीम को अहमियत देते हैं। और तो मेरा ख्याल है कि ये छोटा कदम नहीं है, वरना वर्चुअल आपको पता शिरकत हो सकती थी।
जी, लेकिन हमारे सुनने में आ रहा है कि उनकी काफ़ी निंदा की जा रही है पाकिस्तान में कि क्यों गए वो और नहीं जाना था इंडिया, तो इसके बारे में आप क्या बताएंगे?
निंदा का मतलब मेरे ख्याल से मुखालफत ही होगा, अगर मैं गलत नहीं हूँ तो। मुखालफत तो आपको पता है दोनों जगह ही है, हर चीज़ की मुखालफत है। मैं अगर माइक पकड़ूंगा तो इसकी मुखालफत हो जाएगी, अगर मैं माइक नहीं पकड़ूंगा तो इसकी मुखालफत हो जाएगी। तो मुखालफत करने वालों को छोड़ें, जो फैक्ट्स हैं उस पर बात करें।
अच्छा, आप बताएं
तो लेकिन मैं यही कहूँगा, हिमायत करने वाले और इस पॉजिटिव कदम से खुश होने वाले भी दोनों तरफ बहुत ज़्यादा लोग हैं।
आप मीडिया में सीनियर एडिटर हैं, मीडिया की तरफ से आपके क्या एक्सपेक्टेशंस हैं? किन एक्सपेक्टेशंस के साथ आप आए हैं?
देखा, मीडिया के एक्सपेक्टेशन, मुझे तो यहाँ बड़ा पॉजिटिव रिस्पांस मिल रहा है पूरा ओवरऑल इंडिया से। इवन कल हमने देखा कि बिलावल की कवरेज के लिए पूरा इंडियन मीडिया मौजूद था। ऑफिशियल तो अंदर मौजूद थे, लेकिन जितना बड़ा इंडिया भारत के न्यूज़ चैनल्स हैं, बहुत ज़्यादा वो लोग बाहर, उन्होंने 2 घंटा इंतज़ार किया। और ओवरऑल हमने जो उनका ऑफ द रिकॉर्ड भी बातचीत देखी, वो बड़े पॉजिटिव हैं बिलावल के लिए भी, इवन पाकिस्तान के लिए भी। आपको पता है कुछ रिक्वायरमेंट्स, कुछ पॉलिसी अलग अलग चैनल्स की अलग हो सकती है, जिसकी वजह से वो शायद कि वो ऑन एयर जाके कुछ और बोलें, लेकिन बहुत पॉजिटिव है, दोनों जगह बहुत पॉजिटिव है।
क्या आप यानी पाकिस्तानी जर्नलिस्ट के साथ आज आपके फॉरेन मिनिस्टर बिलावल भुट्टो मिलेंगे?
अभी कुछ ऐसा शेड्यूल नहीं है, लेकिन जाहिर सी बात है कुछ कहा नहीं जा सकता, तो अभी कुछ ऐसा शेड्यूल नहीं।
तब तो लेटेस्ट तब आपसे फिर बात हो पाएगी।
शुक्रिया, बात होती रहेगी
जी। थैंक यू वेरी मच। थैंक यू। दैट वाज रेहान अहमद. Rehan Ahmed is a senior editor of Hum News in Pakistan. It's a new channel. This is Padma Rao reporting live from the SCO Media Center in Banauli, Goa.
Thanks so much, Padma. General Narasimhan, coming to you, we have been talking about India, Pakistan, and the different aspects of the relation. We talked about trade, but one thing that Ambassador Mohan also referred to is the ceasefire. It's been holding on the line of control on the borders for almost 3 years now. There was this ceasefire that was announced in November 2003. Then it held for some time. Then there were repeated violations. That went on for a long span of time. And finally, it was renewed in February 2021. And it's holding so long. Don't you think that's one glimmer of hope, one positive thing, that between the two countries, that's in fact worked? There have been infiltration bids, some of the infiltration bids have been foiled, but ceasefire per se has been holding.
Yeah, your point is valid that the ceasefire has been holding. I mean, that is something which is a positive sign one can see. But don't forget, recently we had the incident in Poonch. So the issue is that while ceasefire is holding on the conventional side, you find the unconventional unconventional activities on terrorism, etc. They are still very much happening. So the terrorism has not gone away anywhere; it is still there, but we need to probably handle it. That we will do. And ceasefire, of course, is holding. I agree with you on that. But there are 3 more points I wanted to make. One is on the talks with Pakistan, which Colonel KJ has mentioned. Please take your mind back. We have been doing that all along. When Mr. Gujral was the Prime Minister, we started something. When Mr. Vajpayee was the Prime Minister, we started something. Even when Mr. Manmohan was there, we started something. And then when Mr. Narendra Modi came as Prime Minister, we started the talks again. Unfortunately, every time these talks go on, there seems to be some kind of a pushback on that. And they've not been able to progress. And you will remember Mr. General Musharraf coming to Agra to sign that agreement in 2002, which was the last moment stopped. So how long can we keep on doing this? We keep extending the olive branch and the olive branch doesn't get extended in return. Then you have a problem on hand. So this is something that we need to keep in mind. And the second thing is about linking Chabahar with the One Belt, One Road initiative. Now, I'm not sure whether that will be a correct way of looking at it. The reason for that is very simple. One Belt, One Road initiative and Chabahar are two different things. It's apple and oranges, actually speaking. The One Belt, One Road initiative is a bilateral initiative which has been entered into with all the countries by the Chinese. Whereas Chabahar is something which is different. So linking these two may or may not be correct. While Ambassador Mohan Kumar's point is valid to the extent that yes, China is also trying to make an entry into Chabahar phase 2 and other things are going to be linked to that. So that point I agree. But to link One Belt, One Road and the Chabahar initiative may or may not be so correct. That is the one. The last point on the CPEC slowing down, you're very correct on this. Despite the fact that the chief of Pakistan Army had been to China recently, I don't see an uptick in the investments in CPEC coming up in the near future. The reason is simple. Chinese are also looking at the repayment and the repayment capabilities and the other issues that are involved in it, including the security of their personnel operating in Pakistan. So these are issues that they will not be able to grapple with. And starting from 2019 onward, there has been a reduction of 55% of the investments in China-Pakistan economic corridor. I don't see that improving. It is going to only continue in the same trend, despite the fact Chief of Army Staff of Pakistan was in China recently.
Yes, and you raised a very important point. There was this incident at Dhasu in Pakistan some time ago in which Chinese workers were killed. Security is a very important issue for China more than anything else. There are many Chinese engineers and workers out there in Pakistan, and they have come under attack, terrorist attacks in the past, and that's an important concern for Pakistan and for the future of CPEC. But Lieutenant Colonel KJ Singh, if I can come to you, the point that General Narasimhan is making, that in the past such efforts, such attempts were made, but we know what happened. There's Pulwama, and now recently there was this attack in Poonch, and those images were very hard to see when that the truck was on fire, and you can see that image. This is the context. Then, what is the source of your optimism that India and Pakistan can come together and talk when these things do not end on the ground? You can see that army truck there on the screen and the casualties that took place in that terror attack.
You see, there are two things. That doesn't mean if there are setbacks that we will never talk to them again. Setbacks will keep on happening. And the other thing is the most important bilateral ever was in Agra. We all know, we are going to understand that Mr. Musharraf and Mr. Vajpayee, both the prime minister, had come to some sort of an understanding. A lot of you know what the understanding was. And thereafter, it is also well known that Lal Krishna Advani and Mr. Mahajan, they sabotaged the thing. Well, Mr. Advani, it is believed, was in a hurry to become the prime minister. That's why he preponed the elections, that he will do the same thing, right? He wanted the credit that when he becomes the prime minister. So Musharraf had to leave in a half early morning. And he said it as much. Of course, he didn't understand. You are the prime minister and I'm the president. Both of us have decided to know what happened. We understand. We have a cabinet system, XYZ. So we cannot keep on blaming Pakistan always for the failure of bilateral. And if a lot of, I don't think anybody will for what they said.
But there is a history. There was this parliament attack, and there was Operation Parakram. Things sort of normalized a bit. Then there was again another attack. You see what happened in Pulwama, and terrorism has not ended in Jammu and Kashmir. There are operations on a regular basis where militants are killed in operation. They are getting weapons from somewhere. They may not be going across for training, but they're getting weapons from somewhere. And recently there's this phenomenon of dropping weapons from drones in Jammu and Kashmir and in Punjab. Those would be genuine causes of concern.
You see, the entire Pakistan-Afghanistan region is awash with weapons, especially after the Americans have left. Right? It is not that the weapons are difficult to procure. Only point is, if surely the Pakistan government does not want that the Belt Road should also be attacked by the terrorists. Some of them are on their own. And as far as, yes, this parliament attack and the hotel attacks in Bombay, but Pulwama, well, I mean, there's a lot of question marks on that. And recently with the ex-governor also. So I would not like to comment on that. Right. So
Okay.
point is,
Okay.
do we
Yeah.
stop forever talking that every time we have talks and there is a setback, there is some sort of a terror attack. So therefore, let's not talk.
Okay,
Totally,
we
that
get your point. We get the point that talks should continue. Dialogue should always continue, as they say, uninterrupted dialogue. But Ambassador Mohan Kumar, coming to the politics within Pakistan now, Bilawal Bhutto came to India. Imran Khan had a court hearing, although he blamed what he called as Dirty Harry, one army officer in Pakistan, an army general of ISI. He blames him for his victimization. Then, when he went to court, according to Pakistan media reports, he had a off the record conversation with journalists, and he actually criticized this visit. And his party has been very clear about it. Fawad Chaudhry, one of his ministers in his government in the past and a key member of his party, tweeted about it. Then Shireen Mazari, who's another of a key member of his party, also tweeted about it. And Imran Khan seems to command a lot of popularity at this point in Pakistan. So there is a domestic pressure also on Bilawal. Do you think that would also rather force him to use the K word since he has come to India and there is this pressure back home? What is the sense that you make out of this?
Very hard to make any sense of it because it's a very toxic political atmosphere in Pakistan, I think, as they go up to the elections. But I would make two things, 2 points. One, I'm very keen to hear Bilawal Bhutto in the 1 or 2 interviews that he is going to give to our press.
Yes. Yes.
He has very boldly said in one of the videos that ek do interview mai karunga. So
And those interviews have happened. There's an embargo on those interviews, we are told, and they will be released in the evening. Yeah.
Oh, I see. I didn't know that. But I would be very keen to know, because our press is not going to ask him questions on Shanghai Cooperation Organization at all. The only thing they will ask him is Kashmir and cross-border terrorism. We all know the press making some anodyne statements about Chabahar and connectivity does not get you MRPs or TRPs or whatever you call, but anything he says on terrorism and Kashmir will. So I will be very keen to see what he says. That is point number 1. Point number 2, my honest view is the more we normalize going and coming from India and Pakistan, even in the multilateral context, while we wait for the right atmosphere to be conducive for a bilateral conversation, I think that cannot be bad for the relationship. I'm using a double negative because anything to do with Pakistan becomes so complicated that even the English language sometimes is not adequate. But nevertheless, I would say that if you can at least have goings and comings between the two countries in the context of a multilateral, and if the SCO can give you a pretext for the gentleman that is Bilawal Bhutto to come to India, meet with others, and the fact that we have given visas to 13 accompanying journalists. These journalists could not have come to India without a visa by the Indian High Commission. That
Right.
to me is also a signal. Maybe it's a small signal. So I prefer to see this in that context. Anything else that he said, he used absolutely unparliamentary language about our Prime Minister, no question about it. They are going to use, many others are going to call him names for having gone to India. He will go back. There will be others who will criticize him. All that must be considered par for the course in a rough and tumble democracy like Pakistan or any other
Right.
country. So I
Right.
think we have to wait and see what the interviews went like, whether Bilawal was really statesman-like or not.
Well, that's important that we'll have to watch those interviews and see what exactly he said in those interviews as and when they are released. But we're also joined by Imtiaz Alam from Pakistan, who's a senior journalist. And Imtiaz, we heard we heard different voices from India, and this meeting is going on. Foreign Minister Jaishankar has spoken. What is the sense from Pakistan about Bilawal, but who's coming to India with a group of journalists, and here meeting with the Indian foreign minister and foreign ministers of other host countries, member countries of the SCO?
I think Bilawal's visit is solely focused on Shanghai Cooperation Organization, and we should not read much beyond that. If there are courtesies and pleasant atmosphere there, that will be good, and not more than this. What he has spoken to journalists, and I know that Indian Pakistani journalists are focused on India Pakistan so called, not so called, the real rivalry, whether it is Cold War or hot war periods. And I think media has emerged as a great spoiler, and it is horrible to watch Indian television. And I think to the not so less extent the Pakistani television, you don't get the very objective view or rational view. So I hope that I had suggested to the foreign minister before he had gone to Goa that he should confine himself to SCO, and we could talk about, for example, moving forward from the statement signed by the Director General Military Operations, which led to the ceasefire on line of control. And there was very interesting paragraphs in that statement, committing both countries to the past agreements and going to implement those. So that opens the vast possibility of restoring at least some normalcy, some modicum of normalcy to India-Pakistan relations. This is very unfortunate that Pakistan's foreign minister is coming to India after 12 years. That is so unfortunate. We are next door neighbors, and there should be visits of uh, emissaries from both sides quite often, daily basis. But we shut our doors for smaller things, and we close all the avenues when there is some kind of difference. On terrorism, I would like to speak that yes, there is a big shift in Pakistan that must be recognized in India, but that is not being recognized. There could be an agreement on fighting terrorism and stopping these proxy wars. All proxy wars have to be stopped, and we can start from keeping the status quo of peace, while taking some steps towards at least diplomatic normalization and some kind of people-to-people contact, if not more.
Right.
We can also
Right.
revive the trade agreement, which was almost finalized between Prime Minister Manmohan Singh and President Asif Zardari's government in Pakistan at that time. But that could not be implemented. There are many things which we had agreed in the past. Why should we renege on those, and why should we not proceed further?
Imtiaz Saab, you pointed at some important things, the trade and the LOC ceasefire. We have been talking about LOC ceasefire on this show. It holds at the line of control on the borders. There are no violations happening anymore, though there are infiltration bits that are reported, but ceasefire holds on the borders. You mentioned about that, but you also spoke about trade, and we were earlier talking that there was a Pakistani trade minister a couple of years ago said that trade links could open. The moment he said that, there was so much public pressure that Imran Khan backed out. You have to also understand the public pressure on the ground. Do you think that is also changing in Pakistan, and things have reached to the point where there can be more exchange, as you are talking about cultural exchange, trade exchange? Is that possible at this point in time? Yeah, Imtiaz Saab?
Uh,
Yes. Did you hear my question?
you are asking,
Yeah.
I could understand what you are asking. Yeah, please, you repeat your question.
I'm saying that you mentioned about trade. There can be trade between the two countries, but the the public pressure. Look at the Pakistan's biggest party, the PTI. The statements coming from PTI leadership that they have rather criticized the foreign minister of Pakistan for visiting India.
Yes, we see this kind of low politics both in Pakistan and India. Uh, I know many instances in the past. Politicians shift their positions when in opposition, and when they go in the government, they are shifting
Yeah,
positions.
yeah,
But I see Pakistan was far ahead in India bashing in Pakistani media a few decades ago. But I see that now India has driven Pakistan back and have taken the lead. And I see daily Pakistan bashing stories on Indian television. Why I see very rarely India bashing stories on Pakistani television, though the content is or attitude is negative, which is quite unfortunate. But what I'm saying is that uh, in Pakistan there is not that kind of sentiment, anti-India sentiment, as used to be in say uh, 70s or 80s. It is now a different place. India is no more an election issue in Pakistan. Yes, we have uh, Pakistanis have some uh, very serious commitment about Kashmiri people, and when they hear bad stories, they feel for the Kashmiris, no doubt about it. But I think apart from that, there is no, I think, much chauvinism going on around here. Even though the peace movement is defeated in both India and Pakistan, we are on the back foot. But I think the hawks are not gaining any currency as well. But India, I saw the last elections. There were a lot of Pakistan bashing, and Pulwama became one of the major electoral battle issue in the last elections. And we came to know later how Pulwama was used. So we see this thing as well in Pakistan when that Air Force intrusion into Pakistan's territory happened last time. But I think the Pakistani government at that time handled very well. Quite promptly, they released the Indian pilot. That was, I think, good thing to do.
right,
So I think Pakistan and India should learn to live with each other, even if we are not able to resolve our historical baggages or address the issues that are holding us back. We should
right,
get out of the past, and we should get out of the memories of the partition. And the partition was not the solution. Partition
right,
continues to be partitioning both Pakistani society and Indian society.
right,
So I do not feel happy when Indian society is being partitioned on religious ground. And when the partition happened, it was too bloody, and it
right,
left very bad memories among the generation who suffered at the
right.
hands of atrocities on both sides.
Right,
So
right.
what I'm saying is,
Take that.
let us
Yeah,
get over.
yes, yes. Let me take that to Nandan Unikrishnan. Imtiaz Alam says that ground realities in Pakistan has changed. Things have moved on. Uh, do you agree?
Yes, of course, I have to admit that I'm not a Pakistan expert. I'm
Right.
probably the only one in India who isn't.
Yeah.
But the fact of the matter is that if you look at what is available in the public domain, there does seem to be a serious debate within Pakistan about what direction it should take. I may not be as optimistic as Imtiaz Saab is that necessarily the liberal democratic view will prevail, because Imran Khan, in my opinion, is definitely not that kind of view, and he seems to be generating substantial support too. So we'll have to wait and watch. And unfortunately, I don't think at this stage India has the capability or should be taking a bet on what may be rather than on what is. So, to that extent, I would tend to agree with Ambassador Mohan Kumar that maybe at this stage, a certain amount of skepticism from the Indian state is required. As far as Indian media and Pakistani media and all is concerned, you see, this is a problem that is occurring not only with us, it's occurring even if you look at the US media. The moment foreign policy becomes part of your domestic agenda and all statements made by leaders on that is addressed to a domestic audience, then things tend to go awry. I mean, foreign policy cannot be based on policy statements being made addressed to a domestic audience. Unfortunate. I'm, of course, a far more cynical person. I believe that mixing morality with foreign policy is a complete crime, but that is a different issue completely.
Right. Right. Lieutenant Colonel KJ Singh, we talked about the two countries and the sort of relation they had, but do you think that it's some way a beginning that Pakistani foreign minister came to India and with a group of journalists, they were given visas by the Indian mission there? It could capitalized here on, and it could be considered as a beginning, and we can move in that direction of building better relation between the two countries.
No, I don't think one single meet can have such a earth-shaking thinking that better relations will happen. It will take a long, long time, couple of decades. Presently, there has been a setback. Until as such time this Kashmir thing is resolved, nothing going to happen. And Kashmir, I don't see any resolution coming ever. We are talking. And it'll be better if journalists from both sides are freely able to travel between the two countries. And the jingoism which goes on Indian television is frankly nauseating. Right? Actually is a deliberate attempt to spread hatred. And I see jingoism basically confined to North India. It is not as big as South India. Even in North India, at least the partition who were affected, it's only the Punjabis and the Bengalis. The Punjabis have got over it. Right? Somehow it is crept into UP, Bihar, etc. And amongst the intelligentsia, that's what is bothersome. At the drop of a hat, there is so religious animosity which is being generated is actually fearful. All the main thing of leadership is unite. There is a strange leadership which is spreading religious hatred, divisiveness, and sectarianism. What do you get by dividing the country? Your own country. You cannot wish away historical things. It is there.
Right.
It is. You have to live with it.
Yeah, we spoke a lot about India, Pakistan, and Pakistani foreign minister in India. But I want to, before we wrap up, Ambassador Mohan Kumar, the thing is that Indian foreign minister also spoke with his Chinese counterpart and then put out a tweet making it, it was made very clear that that the focus is on resolving outstanding issues and ensuring peace and tranquility in the border areas. Obviously, India and China we know the situation in eastern Ladakh. There have been so many exchanges of talks happening on the ground between military commanders. So do you think that India has made its position very clear that border issues must be resolved and then there can be a move forward?
Yes, I do believe we have made our position clear, because every time the Indian foreign minister or the external affairs minister has met with the Chinese foreign minister, you will find that both sides put out two statements. They haven't done a joint statement yet in the near past, really, in the recent past. And both the statements give you a fundamentally different version of the problem. For the Chinese, there is general stability in the border, and they are talking about stability with 100,000 troops on either side, eyeball to eyeball confrontation. And they say, leave the border aside. We will talk about it for the next 20 years, but let's get on with bilateral relations. The Indian side has made it abundantly clear, both in writing and orally, that the external affairs minister has not failed to underline, unless we resolve this border issue, we're not talking about a total resolution, but we need disengagement followed by de-escalation at the border. Without that, you can't. If you allow me just 1 minute on the Pakistan issue.
Yes.
Just my 2 cents words.
Yeah.
One, Pakistan and India are condemned to coexist. Number two, the gap between India and Pakistan is widening. And this is I'm talking about the trade gap, the economic gap, the technological gap, the per capita GDP gap. And third, I sincerely believe we need a valid, democratically elected interlocutor in Pakistan. Thank you.
Right. And on that note, we have to end this show. Thanks to all our participants for joining us today with their ideas and their inputs about this entire meet. We will continue to focus on the SEO in Goa all through the day. Do keep tuned in to Mojo Story for all the updates. But for now, it's goodbye from us.
It's great to see you here. Thank you for watching our work. If you haven't subscribed yet, don't forget to click the bell icon and subscribe to Mojo Story and support independent, robust journalism.